Is that supposed to be a snake? Or did a toddler scribble on you with a marker while you were passed out? The remark cut sharply through the steady hum of the server racks in the Naval Command and Control Center. The room glowed with cold. Blue light packed with high-end equipment and personnel who carried themselves like the brightest minds on the planet. Harold Beck didn't respond. He kept his gaze on the floor buffer, hands steady on the vibrating handle as he guided it in slow, practiced arcs across the linoleum. At 82, Harold understood that saying nothing was often the most powerful reply. But today, his quiet seemed to irritate the man hovering behind him. "Hey, I'm talking to you, old man." "I asked about the ink." Lieutenant Commander Vance stepped into Harold's peripheral vision. Young for his rank, Vance carried himself with the stiff precision of someone who had spent his entire career in climate-controlled rooms, waging digital wars from behind screens. A steaming styrofoam cup sat in one hand, while the other leveled a perfectly manicured finger at Harold's forearm. Harold switched off the floor buffer. The sudden silence seemed to hollow out the room. Slowly, he straightened, vertebrae cracking in quiet protest, 2 years of hard living etched into the motion. He glanced at his arm. The tattoo was little more than a blurred, relic-faded ink bleeding into thin, creased skin. To anyone who didn't know better, it was a jagged black diamond, a crooked lightning bolt, then 3 uneven dots, crude, ugly, cheap. Prison art to the untrained eye. "It's just a mark, sir," Harold said softly, his gravel-rough voice steady. He tightened his grip on the buffer's handle, ready to resume work. "Just a reminder. A reminder of what? Bad choices?" Vance snorted, glancing at the 2 junior ensigns beside him. They laughed on Quexa for Ensign Miller, who shifted her gaze to the glowing tactical map on the wall. "You know, we actually have appearance regulations on the command deck," Vance continued, stepping in front of the buffer and blocking Harold's path. "Even for janitorial staff. That thing looks like gang graffiti." "Something you picked up in county lockup, Harold?" Harold met his eyes. Vance's face was smooth, untouched by weather or worry. Harold's was a landscape of deep lines and worn experience. "No prison, sir." "Just work, right?" "Sure." Vance took a slow sip of coffee. "Well, cover it up. Roll your sleeves down. I don't want that scratchpad mess in my line of sight while I'm coordinating fleet movements." Harold hesitated. The command center was kept at a frigid 65 degrees for server cooling, but pushing the heavy buffer kept him warm. Long sleeves would make the next hour miserable. "With respect, sir, maintenance contractors are allowed rolled sleeves while operating heavy machinery. Safety protocol to prevent snagging." Vance's expression hardened. The air shifted. "You're quoting safety regs to me?" His voice dipped into a dangerous register. "I'm the watch officer. Your job is to clean floors, not lecture a lieutenant commander on uniform code." He stepped forward, invading Harold's space, expensive cologne, clashing with floor wax. "And now I'm questioning your judgment. Hell, your clearance. Gang ink is a security risk. Who approved you?" "I've worked this base 15 years, Harold replied, feet firm beneath him, body unconsciously falling into an old, unshakable stance. "Times change. Standards change." Vance flicked a hand at the ensigns. "Miller, check his badge. Run it. Let's see if our friend Harold is even authorized to be in the command center or if admin screwed up." Miller hesitated. "Sir, he's Mr. Beck. He cleans this room every Tuesday." "He's never had an issue. That was an order, Ensign." Harold stood perfectly still as the young woman approached him, apologetic. She gently took the laminated badge from his pocket. Harold stared straight ahead, focusing on a blinking red server light. A cold, familiar detachment settled in his chest. Not fear, he hadn't truly felt fear since 1968, but a deep, weary disappointment. His tattoo seemed to pulse. For a heartbeat, the blue glow of the command center vanished. He was back in knee-deep black mud, the air thick with rot and cordite. The tattoo was fresh and raw on his arm. Blood smeared as corporal needles from Alabama wiped it clean with a moonshine-soaked rag. "Don't move, Harry," Needles whispered. "This ink binds us. If we die in this hole, the Reaper needs to know who to send the bill to." The lightning bolt was crooked because mortar rounds shook the earth as needles worked. The 3 dots marked the 3 men they'd lost that week. The vision evaporated. Harold blinked himself back into the cold room where Ensign Miller typed his ID into her tablet. Vance loomed, still smirking. You see, Harold, the Navy values precision, excellence. That mess on your arm. It's the opposite. Chaos, sloppiness. It offends the uniform I wear. Harold remained quiet. He wanted to say the uniform meant nothing. Inside it mattered. He wanted to explain that chaos was the world's default state, and the lightning bolt was an attempt to carve meaning into it. But Vance was a man who thought war was a clean board game on high-def screens, not a blind knife fight in a dark closet. Sir, Miller said at last, his clearance is valid. Fully green. Level 4, access. Vance's jaw tightened. He snatched the badge from her hand. Level 4. For a janitor, he scoffed. That's higher than yours, Miller. Must be a mistake. She checked her tablet again. It says it was authorized by the base commander 3 years ago, sir. Probably a clerical error. Or maybe you mopped the Admiral's favorite floor. Vance tossed the badge at Harold. It bounced off his chest and hit the tile. Pick it up, he ordered. Harold looked at the badge, then at Vance. I said pick it up. Then gather your equipment and get out. I'm revoking your access to the CNC deck until security reviews your file. I don't like your attitude or that ridiculous tattoo. Harold bent slowly, knees popping. He retrieved the badge and clipped it on. I have work to finish, sir. The Admiral wants the floors done before the delegation arrives at 1400. I'm the officer of the deck. Leave. Operators had stopped working, turning in their chairs to watch. No one intervened. Rank crushed courage except for one person. In the corner, civilian IT contractor Sarah had been pretending to focus on a hard drive swap. She'd known Harold for years. He always brought peppermint candies and asked about her kids. She'd watched Vance toss the badge. Watched the old man's knees strain. Anger burned in her gut. She pulled out her phone and sent a quick text to Major Lewis. Trouble in CNC. Vance is going after Mr. Beck. It's bad. He's kicking him out over a tattoo. She hit send, stood up, and spoke. Commander. Is this really necessary? He's just doing his job. And spun, sneer twisting. Stay in your lane. Tech support. This is a military matter. Uniform standards. Security concerns. He's an old man with a mop. Vance, you're being cruel. That's enough. Speak again, and you'll be escorted out with him. He turned back to Harold, who still hadn't moved. Are you deaf, old man? Move. Harold exhaled deeply, the sound echoing like it came from somewhere far older than the room. I can't leave, sir. The buffer's heavy. The service elevator's down. I need to finish this section before I can store it. I don't care. Carry it on your back. Get out. Vance reached out and grabbed Harold's shoulder, crossing a line he didn't understand. Harold reacted without thought. He didn't strike. He simply shifted his weight, lowering his center of gravity, rotating his shoulder. Vance's grip slid off as if he'd grabbed a greased pole. Harold didn't move otherwise. Hands remained lightly on the buffer's handle. Do not touch me, son, Harold said. The sir was gone. The voice was no longer gravel-lit, was stone. Vance stumbled back, eyes flashing with outrage. Did you just assault a superior officer? He shouted. I stood still, Harold replied calmly. You lose your balance. That's all this is, Vance muttered as he unhooked the radio from his belt. Mastered arms to the command deck. I've got a hostile non-combatant, possible intoxication. Request immediate removal and detention. The room went still. Calling the master-at-arms on an 80-year-old janitor wasn't just an overreaction, it was professional suicide. Or it should have been. But Vance was too far gone, drowning in his own wounded pride. Harold didn't move. He simply looked again at the tattoo on his arm, the diamond, the lightning bolt, the 3 dots. Worth it, he thought. If this is how it ends, dragged out by MPs, so be it. I've survived worse. Across the base, in a plush hallway lined with framed insignias, an elevator opened. Captain Julian Iron Sterling, United States Marine Corps, stepped out enormous. Covered in ribbons, earned in Fallujah, Marja, and places the public would never know. 2 gunnery sergeants and a Navy captain walked beside him, heading toward the command and control center for a scheduled briefing. Sterling's phone buzzed. A forwarded message from Major Lewis. Heads up. Situation in CNC officer harassing an elderly staff member. Says the guy's got a weird diamond plus lightning bolt tattoo. Asterisk. Sterling halted mid-stride. His Marines stopped instantly. The Navy captain turned. Everything all right, Julian? Sterling stared at the message. The description wasn't random. It was precise. A diamond, a lightning bolt, and 3 dots. Not a design from a San Diego tattoo shop. Not something a drunk sailor scrawled on deployment. It was the kill marker insignia of a deep recon platoon in the Ashau Valley. 1968. A unit that officially didn't exist for 2 decades. The Ghost Walkers. 12 men. For survivors, Sterling knew because his father had been one of them, the team's radio operator. He'd drawn that symbol on napkins at the dinner table, telling young Julian stories about the men who wore it, especially the story of their team leader. The man they called the Wraith, who carried Sterling's father for miles on a shattered ankle through NVA territory. Sterling put his phone away. "We need to get to CNC," he said quietly. "Why? What's going on?" asked the Navy captain. Sterling's eyes hardened. Someone is about to make the biggest mistake of their life. Back in the command center, tension thickened the air. Vance paced, waiting for the MPs. Harold leaned against the wall, arms crossed, tattoo exposed. "You're going to regret this?" Vance snapped. "You think you can disrespect the chain of command?" "I respect the rank," Harold replied quietly. "I'm struggling with the man wearing it." Vance surged forward. The double doors exploded open. "Attention on deck." A gunnery sergeant thundered. Every spine turned to steel. Every chair stilled. Even Vance froze, hands still halfway to Harold's chest. Captain Sterling marched in. Boots striking with a rhythm Harold recognized instantly. The Navy captain followed close behind. Vance quickly regained his smugness and threw a salute. "Captain Sterling, sir, apologies for the disturbance. I was neutralizing a security threat." The contractor assaulted. Sterling didn't so much as glance at him. He walked straight to Harold, past the monitors, past the stunned sailors, stopping just 3 feet from the janitor in red coveralls. "That's him, sir," Vance said. "He's silence, Lieutenant," the Navy captain snapped. Sterling studied Harold's face, his uniform, his mop bucket, and then the tattoo. He traced the faded ink with his eyes. He saw the old scar tissue beneath it. He saw the history Vance had mocked. Harold met his gaze. He didn't know this Marine, but he recognized the look. The look of a man who understood. Sterling raised his right hand in a perfect salute. Sharper, cleaner, more reverent than anything Vance had ever offered. He held it. 1 second. 2. 3. A captain saluting a janitor. "Protocol shattered, sir," Sterling said, voice thick. "It is an honor to stand in your presence." Harold straightened, shedding 20 years of age and a heartbeat, and returned the salute, a movement burned into muscle memory half a century old. "At ease." "Captain," Harold murmured. Sterling turned to the room, his gaze landing on Vance, now the color of chalk. "Do you know who this is, Lieutenant?" He's the janitor, Harold Beck." Sterling faced Harold and spoke gently. "May I?" Harold nodded. Sterling lifted the man's arm for the room to see. "This is the insignia of 3rd Force Recon. Team Sidewinder, the deep insertion element. Operating in the Ashau Valley in 1968, known as the Ghost Walkers. Their mission was to locate NVA artillery, tearing our bases apart. The diamond is pressure. The lightning bolt is the strike. The 3 dots," Sterling swallowed, "are for the 3 men from their 5-man team who didn't make it home." He turned to Harold. "My father was Corporal James Sterling. Your radio operator." Harold's stoic expression cracked. Jimmy, you're Jimmy's boy? Yes, sir. He told me about the hill, about how you carried him for miles while he bled on your back, how every time he begged you to leave him, you told him to shut up and keep the radio dry. Harold blinked hard. He kept it dry, called in the birds, saved all of us. Sterling pivoted to Vance. This man has a Navy Cross, 3 Purple Hearts. He's the reason my father lived long enough to raise me, and you mocked him, threatened him, tried to throw him out because you didn't like the ink on his skin. I didn't know, Vance stammered. Ignorance is no excuse for cruelty, the Navy captain said. You judged a book whose language you couldn't even read. Sterling faced Harold again. If you're willing, sir, I would be honored if you joined us for the briefing. We're covering asymmetric warfare in dense terrain. Your insight would be worth more than anything on these screens. Harold looked at the buffer. I should finish the floor. The Admiral likes it shining. We have people for that, the Navy captain said. Ensign Miller. Yes, sir. She practically vaulted over her desk, taking the buffer from Harold. It would be my honor. Harold glanced at Vance, shrinking into himself, and approached him quietly. You've got good boots, son. Keep them clean. But remember, the real work happens in the mud, and the men in the mud don't look like posters. They look like me. Vance stared at the floor. Yes, sir. Harold turned back to Sterling. You look like him, you know, Jimmy. Same chin. Sterling allowed himself a rare smile. I hope I'm half the man he was. You're doing all right, Harold said softly. Sterling gestured toward the door. After you, sir. Harold Beck, the janitor with the prison tattoo, straightened his coveralls and walked toward the exit. Sterling followed a step behind. To his right, the position of respect, as Harold stepped through the doorway. Memories flickered. Jungle heat, rain, gunpowder ink. Jimmy's steady hand. Hold still, Harry. This'll hurt. Pain is just information. Finish it. The door closed behind them. Silence hung in the command center. Ensign Miller restarted the buffer, guiding it reverently over the spot where a giant had stood. Vance sat alone, reading Harold Beck's personnel file. The citations, the battles, the sacrifice. And as he read, he realized the truth. He had never earned the uniform he wore. He had only been wearing a costume. Harold Beck had lived it, outside. Harold and Sterling walked together. So Harold asked, Does the coffee in the briefing room still taste like mud? Sterling laughed. Worse, like jet fuel and burnt plastic. Harold smiled. Good, just like home. The legend of the quiet hero with the strange tattoo would not be forgotten. It had simply found a new audience, and this time no one was laughing. If this story of unseen bravery and true humility touched your heart, please like and share to honor the veterans in your life. Subscribe to Nexo Stories for more powerful tales of real heroes hiding in plain sight.